Before we begin, take a moment. Notice what is here. Not to judge it, not to fix it, just to understand. The Nasia within you remembers. Sometimes your reaction is older than the moment. Have you ever noticed yourself reacting to something and somewhere inside thinking, why does this feel so much bigger than what is actually happening? Someone is disappointed in you, and suddenly you feel an overwhelming need to explain yourself. Someone becomes distant, and your mind immediately begins searching for what you did wrong. You make a mistake, and instead of simply thinking, I made a mistake, something inside you hears, I'm not good enough. Sometimes the present moment touches something that was learned much earlier. Not necessarily because there is a hidden trauma behind every reaction, and not because every uncomfortable emotion needs to be traced back to childhood, but because childhood is one of the places where we first begin learning what relationships, conflict, approval, rejection, belonging, and safety mean. Before you had adult language for these experiences, you were already forming interpretations of them. What happens when someone is angry with me? What do I have to do to feel accepted? Is it safe to disagree? What happens when I need something? Who do I need to become in order to belong here? And some of those early interpretations can remain remarkably familiar long after the circumstances around them have changed. This is one way of understanding what people sometimes call the inner child. Not necessarily a separate person living somewhere inside you, but a way of recognizing that younger experiences can still echo through the way you feel, interpret, and respond to life today. What if you stopped arguing with her? When an old reaction appears, our first instinct is often correction. Stop overthinking. You're being too sensitive. Why are you still afraid of this? You should know better by now. But imagine speaking that way to the younger version of you who first learned that reaction. Imagine her sitting beside you. Maybe she is 6, maybe 10, maybe 15. And instead of analyzing her, correcting her, or telling her that her feelings don't make sense, you listen. You might say, I can see that you're scared. I understand why this feels familiar. You don't have to figure this out by yourself. I'm here now. It can feel strange to speak to a younger version of yourself, almost as though she was sitting outside of you. But sometimes, creating that little bit of distance makes compassion easier. You stop being completely inside the fear and begin relating to the part of you that is afraid. The situation may not immediately disappear. Your body may not suddenly become completely calm, but something about the experience can change when fear is met with reassurance instead of criticism. You are no longer fighting yourself while also trying to deal with what happened. Listen to her, but don't give her the steering wheel. There is another side to inner child work that deserves just as much attention. Listening to a younger part of yourself doesn't mean allowing every fear that comes from that place to decide what happens next. Imagine a frightened child sitting beside you in a car. You wouldn't ignore her. You wouldn't shame her for being frightened. You might listen, comfort her, explain where you are going, maybe even slow down for a moment. But you probably wouldn't hand her the steering wheel. And perhaps adulthood sometimes asks something similar of us. You can acknowledge, part of me is afraid that they will leave, without immediately chasing them for reassurance. You can recognize, part of me is terrified of disappointing someone, without automatically abandoning your own boundary. You can notice, part of me wants to disappear because being seen feels uncomfortable, without assuming that disappearing is the only available choice. The feeling gets a seat. It gets your attention. It may even deserve your compassion, but it doesn't automatically get the final decision. Because understanding where a reaction comes from and allowing that reaction to run your life are two very different things. Becoming the adult who stays. Maybe connecting with your inner child isn't about spending the rest of your life looking backwards. Maybe the purpose of looking back is to change what happens now, to recognize an old fear without becoming completely consumed by it, to offer yourself reassurance without needing the entire outside world to become predictable first. To notice when you are reacting from an old understanding of yourself and gently introduce another possibility. We're not there anymore. I have choices now. I can leave if something isn't right for me. I can say no. I can ask for help. I can survive someone being disappointed in me. I don't have to earn belonging by disappearing inside other people's needs. And perhaps that is where the relationship between your younger self and your adult self begins to change. Your inner child doesn't need to disappear for you to grow. She doesn't need to become perfectly healed. She may occasionally become frightened again. Old feelings may still return, but she doesn't have to face them alone anymore, because there is something available now that wasn't available when she was younger. You, the adult version of you who can notice, who can listen, who can comfort, and who can still decide what happens next. So when an old reaction appears, instead of immediately asking, how do I get rid of this part of myself? Try asking, what is this younger part of me afraid of right now? And then perhaps one more question. What does the adult in me know that she didn't know then? You don't have to silence the child inside you. You don't have to let her run your life either. Maybe healing is learning how to sit beside her while you remain the one holding the steering wheel.